let's go ahead and get into the final picture making process of this here. I'm going to shrink down my color comp and then pretty much use my color comp at its full size as my sketch. Since I've changed a few things in my sketch, I think my color comp will just be more reliable. It's pretty much the same thing one way or the other. Now we're moving at a little bit of a faster speed as I go and do the final painting because, again, that's not really what this class is about. I definitely want to do another class about taking paintings to completion and all the different various ways that I do that, because I think there's a lot of value in that. But this class is mostly about color, and I figured since we're talking about color, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I improved my color sense. I guess we could start at the beginning. Ever since I was a kid, I loved art, loved drawing, and I loved color. When I was in high school, I would always choose these really bright, really vivid colors, and I did very different paintings. I didn't do a lot of digital paintings in high school. I always had a Wacom Bamboo in Photoshop, but I wasn't really painting with it so much as I was like manipulating photos, and I would paint with acrylics and stuff, and I would always make these really bright, really high chroma colors, and I would paint pretty abstractly. And I loved those paintings. They were really fun, but I think that was kind of like where I started to fall in love with the idea of color as a goal in and of itself. And then after that, I went into college, and I don't think I stopped focusing on color, but it became less of my goal to get better at, because I just wanted to get better at painting and figure drawing specifically. And so throughout college, I struggled with color a lot. I always tried to give extra attention to making sure that my colors were looking really vivid and really nice and really fun, but overall, they weren't that special. And I definitely remember like later on, like year 4 of college, when we would be taking like storyboarding class, and one of the projects was we had to make 5 keyframes, 5 painted keyframes of Rikki Tikki Tavi, the short story from the Jungle Book. And I did those, and I don't have those paintings anymore. I think I lost them like last year as I was moving to California, but my main thing with those is I wanted really beautiful colors and really amazing compositions. But I had such little experience, I didn't really know how to achieve either of those things. So I kind of failed on both fronts because I was focusing on both at once. And my colors were not great, my compositions were weird, and my colors and my compositions definitely weren't supporting each other. And most of all, I know for a fact I wasn't thinking about value when I made those paintings. I was just thinking about composition and color, and I didn't think that value played as big of a role as it did. And all the paintings suffered because of that. And then I think after college, things started to gel a little bit more. I kind of took a break from color, and I went into storyboarding, and I kind of spent about 4 or 5 months focused pretty intently on just learning how to be a better storyboard artist, which, as you could see, I'm not a storyboard artist, so that never panned out, but I'm glad I did learn that stuff because it taught me a lot about composition and film and placement and stuff. So we could fast forward a little bit, and I'm just constantly, like, this is 4 years ago, and I'm just constantly doing these paintings, most of which I would put on Tumblr or Instagram, and they're not there anymore because I deleted them just because they were really bad. They were really bad paintings, but it was me trying. It was me throwing my hat in the race and trying to understand color and trying to understand light and shadow, and at the same time trying to understand how to paint an image and try to understand like what is Photoshop and like how do you create a good composition, how do you tell a story, just so many things I was trying to tackle, color among them. And then fast forward another couple of years, and through all that work, I ended up getting a job as a background cleanup artist at Bento Box in Atlanta. And I went into my first day of work, and I quickly realized that all of my now peers were better than me. They were all just miles above me, and I felt so bad, like I shouldn't have been there, like I cheated my way into it. And so that couldn't be. So I went home that night, and I decided the best way for me to learn how to do color, because I was in this pickle where I had to get better, and I couldn't let them know that I wasn't that good. And so I had to get as good as possible, as quickly as possible. So I decided that I would do a painting a day of an island, and I called this island hopping. And this was like 2 or 3 years ago, like I didn't really have any following. I didn't have any people that liked my work. I think I had like 200 followers on Instagram or something. And so no one cared. So I kept making all of these island hopping paintings. I did like one a day, so I did 31 for that month. And to do these and to practice my color, because I wasn't going to sell these for prints or anything, but I would go and I would look at my favorite TV shows that were airing right then and there, and I would find a part of that show where the colors were really working or the show was really pretty, and I would just try to emulate those colors, and I would try to break down why that was successful for them. And I think that really, really helped a lot. That 30, like I didn't understand color immediately, but that 31 days of just trying stuff a lot and just doing a new small painting, lots of small starts every single day really, really helped a lot. And at the end of that, I was a little bit better. My paintings had definitely gotten a little bit better. And my color had gotten a little bit better, but it was this weird thing where my colors were looking better on screen, but I didn't truly understand it because I was making those decisions based off of other people's color decisions. I wasn't making my own color choices. And so then I started another, like the next day, well, I think the next day I started like a comic book, and I tried to do that for about a week, a page a day, and I realized I don't like comic books, but that's another story. Or I love comic books. I don't like making comic books. I love reading them. So I didn't do comic books, so I started doing this other series called Villages, and with that one, I tried to look less at other people's art, and I tried to make my own color choices, and my work took a big step backwards because as I tried to make my own color choices, things got bad, because I didn't know what choices I was making or why I was making them, and it just got real sloppy and real confusing for me. And I pretty much continued down that path of being confused for another 30 days, and then I started doing traditional plein air painting, and I would do that at least 3 to 4 times a week. And I think that's when things began to start to almost click. I would do those plein air paintings, and I think it took me about 3 months to just even understand how gouache worked, of painting like religiously every other day. And it took me about like a month to 3 months just to understand how the medium worked. And then once I finally understood how the medium worked, because I painted every day, I started to understand mixing colors, and I started to understand like how wide greens are, and like what colors I can use to make green, and like how if I paint this color, like if I paint a road red, but if I paint everything else around it a different color than what it would normally be, that road won't look red, it'll look like road color. That might be a strange example, but that's just to illustrate the point of how I was kind of learning on the spot color relationships. And then, I lost my job at Bento Box because the show finished and we didn't have another show, so I was unemployed for a while. And I just kept on making stuff. Wasn't getting paid for it. Nobody really cared. Nobody was looking at it. But I kept making paintings. I was doing gouache paintings, I think at that point, maybe every day or every other day. And I was doing digital paintings every other day or every day. And just kind of grinding and just doing as many paintings as possible. And I would say 90% of those paintings were bad. And out of those 90% that were bad, there were 10% that were actually pretty good, and they're still good to this day. And they got some good attention. And that's great. But it was those 90% of bad paintings that really taught me a lot. And then after another year, I ended up getting a job at Disney, so I packed up all my shit and I moved out to California. And so I started to make more art, and I would start to experiment more with style and experiment more with color. And at this point, I had kind of a foundation of, all these paintings that I tried and failed at. So I kind of knew like, oh, well, if I do this, it won't work. And if I do this, it won't work. And if I do this, it won't work. And notice that I'm saying, if I do this, it won't work. That's another big thing that really helped me. Finding out if I do this, this will work. That's great. That's awesome. And I have those too. But finding out if I do this, it won't work really, really helped me, because then I knew what not to do. And I think that's almost just as valuable as knowing what to do when you're painting. And I think knowing what not to do, you can have someone tell you, but I think to really, truly be a good artist, I think you need to learn that on your own, because then it's more unique to you.